Okay, let's put the grout lines in here. And we start first with our step back here. I'm using just colors from my wall. Left over, I need a little smaller brush. Let's see, I want one that's just the size of my grout lines. I use bright brushes. That has a square end on it, and I really prefer those. And especially in this instance, I can make my line all the way across the same width. And I just drag it over my paint that's there. It doesn't matter if it picks up some of that color. I'm not going to worry about that at this point. Now here it's in light, but then that grout line is going to be in shadow over here behind the board that the gate is hooked to. And now I just go ahead and this edge of the step I can then come back over. Doesn't have to be totally straight. These old stones are worn and they're uneven. Now, here's the fun part, is starting to put some of these grout lines in. Let's go ahead and do this one along this step. I'm not going to worry about doing the steps down at this point. Let's just get this, establish my perspective here. These grout lines now the stones are different sizes, they're uneven, so this isn't like one of my tile floors where everything is in perfect perspective. So these kind of angle and go all different directions, but I still put a few lines in there that give me some feeling of perspective. Okay, so this tile is, or this grout is, make it a little bluer in the back, and as we come up here, make it a little warmer. This, I didn't get my shadow line here. There. Okay, now I'm going to start, I need a little mixture that's a little bit lighter, the blue. That's ultramarine blue plus white plus a tiny bit of cadmium orange to gray it down just a little bit. And I'm going to make some of these lines I am going to make in perspective with my step. But we're not going to have a whole lot of those. And then we start Jack would say these are all anti-goggly. That's just variations of different angles. And let's bring this one over here. Have one coming this way. And I just draw this. I lightly lay my paint over my floor color. You have to have a very light hand doing this, or else you just pull up all that other paint. And I keep wiping my brush because as I do this, you can see how my brush picks up that paint underneath. So I have to keep wiping my brush to keep my grout lines. So we just keep doing different angles. And the stones will get smaller as we go back. It's a little bit bright in that shadow, but I'll come back and make corrections. And this is just getting my basic lines in there. Again, the stones are different shapes, but I'll start making them further apart as we get closer. Let's see, we'll have one here. Just a matter of placement and you can see even way down below I've got the grout lines, and they'll actually be wider as we come forward too. And there's smaller stones in here. It's just very irregular. And I look back, I have a mirror behind me that I look in. This is something that Leonardo da Vinci, Jack read about that he did, and it switches it from the inventive or creative side of your brain to the analytical side. And you can look at your painting like somebody else has painted it, and it really helps in critiquing your own work. This will go. Now this one I want in perspective, so this just kind of, we'll put a couple in here that help our perspective. Again, these are not solid white. I let some of that paint underneath come through. But notice how we're getting bigger as we come forward. That again just helps give the impression of depth. Instead of doing these in a grid perspective, I'm using the size of the individual stones to give the feeling of depth. And as I come forward, my grout, I'm using more of a purple. I use more of a blue toward the back. And this again, my grout, this particular color I'm using is just my mud plus white. As I go toward the back, I'm using ultramarine blue plus white plus a little bit of cadmium orange. Just kind of like connecting the lines instead of connecting the dots. But the grout lines in the light are going to be lighter. And that helps, again, gives our feeling of the shadows. So there we've got the grout lines in there. It's a little bit bright, but I can just go back and darken that a little bit. But that's how I do those floors that are so characteristic of Greece, particularly the islands. They have those wide grout lines. And again, I'm going to come back and just do the upright of this step. When you're painting steps, the upright portion of the step, or the riser, is darker than the flat plane, the top plane of the step, because the top plane receives more light from up above, whereas the riser is darker because it receives less light. Let's go ahead and put a few little stones in here. I'll come back and do a little more work on this, but this is pretty well laid in. I may have to change some of the shapes of the stones just a little bit. Once I really have to stop and just study it in the mirror and decide what I'm going to do. But this is basically laid in. I really don't have a whole lot left to do. This gives me the feel of where my grout lines are going to be. I'll make this a little bluer, so this step, the back part of the step, lays down. This part is going to be a little whiter, whiter like the color, and that lifts it up. So there we go. I really appreciate you watching my YouTube videos. Please subscribe to my channel and visit my blog. I show the complete step-by-step process of this painting in my blog. The link is in the description below. It's also, the address is on the final frame of my video. And just again, you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and help another artist. We don't need to hoard our ideas. We need to help each other. We're all in this together. So you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and thank you again.